their experiences. And another note for you guys is that we'll be having questions. We'll open it up to questions for all of you guys to ask freely. So we're going to have this conversation, and if any questions come up, just raise your hand and you guys can ask your questions. It's all good. It's all good, everybody. There we go. Awesome. So, do we like? Yeah, right here. Right? Yeah, good there.
Right. Sure. So like our first question would be like, where are you guys all from? Like, are you from like the Milwaukee area? Are you from like Greendale maybe, or Green Bay, or just like, get to know you a little bit? Let's see here. Go down the line. Yeah, Emily, you can begin.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, for having us. My name is Emily and I'm from Massachusetts originally.
Thank you.
I guess I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado.
Hi, everybody. My name is Luke, and I'm also from Massachusetts.
And I'm Elaine, and I am from Seattle, Washington.
Are you guys all currently in the Milwaukee area, or are you guys like back home, or?
So Elaine and I are two of the three current Jesuit volunteers this year in Milwaukee. So yes, we are both in Milwaukee right now.
I am currently an admissions counselor here at Marquette. So there's my little Marquette pride for the night. So I am a former Jesuit volunteer. I did JVC in 2018, 2019. So I've been here ever since.
And I am also still in Milwaukee. I stayed at my placement site after my JV year, the year 2019-2020.
And do you all go to Marquette or for college?
No, I went to Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington.
I went to another wonderful Jesuit university, Boston College in Boston, Massachusetts.
I went to University of San Francisco.
And like Luke, I went to Boston College as well.
Dang. I did not expect like all of the United States. We love it. We just love all that. All right. So let's see here. Why did you choose a Jesuit volunteer corps? And then also like why Milwaukee? Since we have like Boston, we have like San Francisco, we have Spokane. Like why Midwest Milwaukee? Anybody can start. Oh, Emily, you can go.
Sure. So before coming to Milwaukee for the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, I had never been to the Midwest before. So this was completely uncharted territory for me, but that's exactly what I wanted. So after my education at Boston College, I was looking to kind of get away from the East Coast and see a different part of the country. And so through JVC, you go through like a match process where you're interviewing at placements, and then it's a matching. So the placements rank you and you rank the placements. And so I ended up matching 1-to-1 with Aurora Walker's Point Community Clinic. And I just said yes, didn't look back. A lot of my East Coast friends said, is Milwaukee, are you going to Hawaii? It's like, nope, it's not where it is. So yeah, why Milwaukee? It was really random, but I'm really happy to be here.
I guess I can go. Similarly, in my JVC placement process, I really fell in love with my work placement and thought less about the greater context of it, though I feel like I lucked out to have JVC as my JVC city and now home. But my JVC year was at Cristo Rey Jesuit High School here in Milwaukee. And so now as an admissions counselor, I love that there are so many Cristo Rey Jesuit students here at Marquette. So it's really kind of cool to see that come full circle. But I first heard of JVC through my one of my campus ministers, a resident minister who was a mentor and friend to me, and she had done JVC. So I don't know, with so many things, I think it starts with knowing someone who's gone through it and then can reflect on how transformative of an experience it was. So that was certainly how the idea first entered into my mind early on in my undergrad education.
I feel like I had sort of a weird journey to end up in Milwaukee. I originally was planning on doing JVC International, so it's called JVI, and I had committed to a position in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, in East Africa. And then obviously, like, pandemic, COVID life world happened. So it was like July, end of June, they told us that they were canceling all international programs. And then they were kind of like, we still have some domestic placements if you want to interview with them. So I was like, okay, like, what else am I going to do for the next year? And I was really drawn to JVC because of the sort of like community aspects, and especially like the focus on like being a part of the community that you're working in and really like accompanying the people in that space, and not just sort of like jumping in being like, I'm gonna fix all your problems. Like it felt like a different mentality than a lot of other sort of service programs, which I really was looking for. So yeah, I interviewed with my now boss at Nativity Jesuit Academy here on the south side of Milwaukee, and I just loved it. I loved the way that he talked about like his students like they were family, and like how many generations of people they had worked with that were in one family, or like, you know, cousins and aunts and uncles and all kinds of people. So that was really cool. And so yeah, I ended up matching. I interviewed for like a couple placements, and I committed like July 8th, and they were like, be here August 12th, and I was like, okay, see you in the Midwest. And like Emily had never been to the Midwest before either, so kind of jumping in blind, but worked out so far.
I just to preface my answer, I think you will pick up on a theme that everything that I say is basically exactly what Emily did a year before me. We're both from Massachusetts. We both went to Boston College, but she graduated the year before I did. We studied similar things. She was the JV at Walker's Point Community Clinic. I am now the JV at Walker's Point Community Clinic. She is applying to medical school. I am applying to medical school next year. So it's just to say that you're going to pick up on a pattern here. But the reason why I was interested in JVC specifically is I very much like sort of, I say this a lot, but like drank the Jesuit Kool-Aid in college, and like was involved in like campus ministry and service and all that good stuff, which I'm sure a lot of y'all are interested in or doing right now at Marquette. But so I thought that it would be like a really great sort of natural progression in terms of my own growth to do something like JVC that combines like work, and specifically work with folks at the margins, right? To steal from Greg Boyle, who I guess was the speaker before us. So that's cool for us. And so that was just something that was very appealing to me. Milwaukee was because when I found out I was interviewing with Walker's Point Clinic as one of my possible placements, I called Emily Zona on the phone to just sort of talk to her about her experience, and she couldn't say like enough nice things, or like she couldn't stop saying nice things about like how great the clinic was and how awesome her experience was working with our patient population, our staff, all that kind of stuff. And so for Milwaukee specifically, it was the placement that sold me, and I just knew that it seemed like a really cool place that I wanted to work.
Yeah, no, you guys mentioned experience a lot, and I'm sure that you have more than just like one experience that you can tell. But what is, if you have to say just one, what experience would it be that like kind of like touched your heart, and then made you say like, dang, I want to like continue with this mission work? I know you may have to think a little bit, because like you guys have had a lot of experience right now.
I can go, I guess, as the former Jesuit volunteer who technically is the furthest out from my year to have had time to reflect. So I don't know. I think that any Jesuit, any JV position, it's kind of a position in which you wear many hats, and that's completely what I loved about it, and certainly what I loved about it being in an educational setting. And I worked for a work study program at Cristo Rey and had this vision of what my position would look like. And then on the first day, I was told that they were in need of a 10-passenger van driver to drive the students to and from work. And I'm just terrified of driving. Like, I've driven before, obviously, but I was, what? And that turned out, this is a very general answer to your question, but that turned out to be one of the most cherished parts of every single day, and one of the most cherished parts of my year as a whole, because even though I had this vision, as Elaine said earlier, whether or not you know it, I think that there's a little bit in me of like, let me fix this, let me teach this, let me give this. And instead, my best memories come from just listening to the students and being in that really sacred space of the van every single day to be able to have that daily relationship. And I think what also made it so powerful, which I'm sure we'll get into later, is that the location of the JVC house is on the south side, and most of the students that I was working with also lived on the south side. So we, by living in that neighborhood, were automatically given access to the same exact reference points that my students had. So there was this ability to share in the stories of the neighborhood and in the locality, and in that safe space of the van that really drove home to me just how privileged of a position it was to just be able to be with them and listen.
Yeah, so like Hannah said, sometimes it's like just about being with people when you can't do X, Y, Z or fix whatever the problem is at hand, just being with someone. So accompaniment. What comes to my mind, so I was in JVC when coronavirus first came to the United States back in around this time last year. And so we were a part of a larger healthcare system. So people were sent, the majority of our clinic staff was sent to work from home, and there were 5 of us who ran the clinic, 5 or 6 of us who ran the clinic for a couple months, including myself as the volunteer. And that experience of absolute, we all remember this, like absolute chaos, loss of life, was really challenging, but also and heartbreaking, but also really eye-opening for me. So I remember in the early days of the pandemic, people would come into the clinic not only with suffering physically, but with symptoms of COVID that we had no idea what they were anyway. But they were saying, you know, I can't feed my family. You know, I don't have any food on the table. I lost my job. I have nothing. Like, please, can you help? Can you help me? And that was like some of the most humbling conversations for me to have with patients. But on the flip side, to see the staff respond. So we sent out, you know, a PSA, they're just saying like, we need food. We need to not only be a place where people can access medical care during this really difficult, crazy, chaotic time, but we need to also address other basic needs. So we set up like a pop-up food pantry provided by clinic staff members who, some of them are also of humble means themselves and struggling during this pandemic as well. We're bringing in food, you know, bought with their own paychecks to help patients. And so that was really powerful experience for me. Obviously, I learned a lot, but I also learned a lot about medicine, which is, you know, what I want to ultimately do, but also about, you know, how to be there for people when you can't fix, how to be in solidarity with others, and also learning about the power of generosity. So.
Yeah, that was beautifully said, Emily. Thank you. I think one thing that I guess maybe 2 really small things that are connected. So I guess maybe they could be one thing. I So for anyone who doesn't know, the Walker's Point Community Clinic is a community health center on the south side in Walker's Point that serves exclusively uninsured and low-income folks, with the exception of recently arrived refugees. We have a program that helps them because they have insurance through the government. But all of our other patients are uninsured, so it's for them. If it's really hard for them to be able to try to find access to any sort of medical care because of sort of just like how our health system is structured in the U.S., right? And so I think one of the things that is really beautiful to see is just like how it's very powerful for me to see how much patients advocate for themselves and like how much of a stake that they want in their own healthcare. To see people like reaching out to us wanting to like help schedule their COVID vaccines because they know that they want that, but like, you know, maybe the language infrastructure isn't there. A lot of our patients are Spanish speaking, speak other languages other than English. And so it's really beautiful to get to see people advocate for their own healthcare and then to sort of work with them to help advocate so that they can get access to medications or vaccines or whatever it is. But I think the thing that struck me the most is just getting to be at that specific clinic and seeing a model of how a healthcare setting can be like a home and a comfortable place for someone. I was recently, Emily and I, one of our like projects has been trying to schedule people that are over 65 to get their COVID vaccine. So I was talking on the phone with a woman who was sort of hesitant about whether or not she wanted it. She had like heard some misinformation about, you know, can cause disease or whatever, like, you know, things that people think. And so I was like, oh, you know, like it's you know, it's important to get it to protect yourself and your family. Like, you know, I got it as someone who on staff at the clinic or like a volunteer at the clinic. And so I feel comfortable, like if you want, I can set up a call with your primary care provider to talk about it. And she was like, you know what, no, like that's okay. You can just schedule me for it. Cause like, I'm sure Carolyn, my primary care provider, would have said the exact same thing that you were saying. And I trust that like all of you guys just like want the best for me. And I just think that like for someone to, after hearing so much misinformation and being like genuinely nervous about getting something like a vaccine, but then to just have like one phone call and be like, oh yeah, like these people know me, they got my back, I feel very privileged to be part of a community that can foster that kind of environment for patients.
Yeah, also beautifully said, Luke. Hard to follow, but I feel like maybe some similar things to Hannah on this question of like what has really moved me, but like honestly just like getting to know the kids that I work with every day. I work with first grade and then also 4th and 5th grade. And they're just like, they're amazing. Like they are going through some really hard things right now. And just like the resilience in them every day and like having very candid conversations with them, like today at recess. One of my students was like, Miss, like my grandpa died. And I was like, whoa, like I don't know how to have this conversation. And I don't know that I'm the right person for you to have this conversation with. But like, then I was also like, but I'm the only one here, like right now. And so like, if this is, you're ready to talk about this right now, or you want to talk about this, like I'm the only person here to have this conversation with you. So like, yeah, and she's 6. And like, we just sat down and like talked a little bit about what that meant and how like I had lost my grandpas too, and like things like that. And yeah, it's just like, it's like those like kind of moments that are like, they're not like the big moment. They're not like the decision making moments. They're not like, oh, like this is going to change my life, I'm committing to this. But they're just like true like moments of human connection. And I don't know, that feels so powerful to me. And like, it makes going into work every day just like such a joy and like, so yeah, just like worth waking up at 5:45 for sure.
You know, like I'm kind of like blown away by all of that because you guys have had so many like unique experiences with this. But you also mentioned many different challenges that came with it, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic that just started a year ago-ish. So, and like, where have you found your faith, and like, how has it improved during all of this process?
So, how have I found my faith during the pandemic specifically, or during my JV year?
Where have you found God? Since we're continuing with this Jesuit like theme, like
Okay.
where have you found God in this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, in everyday interactions with people where, both of us are really present in the moment together, whether that be with a patient or with, my roommate or with a community member or someone completely unrelated at the grocery store, just being like present, being with other people, especially since, I continue to live on the south side of Milwaukee where the JV house is. So continuing to build relationships with the south side community. That's where I find God in everyday human interactions. It sounds like pretty simple, but just paying attention to me is a prayer. So yeah, that's my simple answer. But I think that it's been really powerful for me to talk with people, be with people through, the joys and like laughter and just foolishness, and also through like really serious, trying times.
I can go next. And also, Emily, I don't think that's a simple answer at all. I think that's extremely profound and complex. So I'm gonna have to let that sit with me. To reflect back on my year, which it's kind of sad to realize it's the only year that wasn't touched by the pandemic. But the JVC house is physically attached to St. Hyacinth Parish, 14th and Beecher. So there are so many perks and also just eccentricities that come with literally being attached to a parish. And I think that it was really, I mean, I am Catholic. I was Catholic entering into my JVC year and had never experienced such an immersive experience of faith by being witness to the faith patterns, if you will, of that parish day in and day out. Like the church bells ringing many, many times over again on Sunday morning, having to enter through various church programs happening in the kitchen or on the main floor of our building, hearing the band practice outside of our window, and then seeing my students that I worked with at my placement at Mass. And I was always the kind of person who would like totally wave at them and humiliate them in front of their whole family, because it was so exciting for me, again, to have that shared experience with them and to sit in the same pews as them. So it really took the collective experience of faith the next level for me, being so at like such a privileged position so close to that parish, and also to see how active that parish was in the community made it that much more of a special location for us as a Jesuit volunteer community.
Yeah, so I am not Catholic. I grew up Unitarian Universalist, and still identify that way when it comes to organized religion. But I would say that like I don't know if any of you know anything about the UU tradition, but like we have sort of 7 like UU principles that are meant to be like lived by. And I think that it's definitely like this year and being, I don't know, just like with people every day, like this kind of sounds similar to Hannah and Emily for sure, but has reminded me a lot of like some of those principles, and especially like just the belief in like the interconnected web of life, and how like everything is connected, and how like we're all connected, people are, but then also like we're all connected to like the plants and animals and just like things like that in our lives, and like how I don't know, that can like so deeply root us wherever we are, which I think is pretty cool, and has been like a really good reminder, I think, in this pandemic year as well. Just that like, like a lot of these things that my students are experiencing, I have also experienced, and like I can empathize and I can be with them through that, because like it is all connected and we are all like a part of this together. So I don't know. I think my like sort of faith and spirituality is definitely inherently connected to the experiences I've been having, but I don't know for sure if I know all the ways yet that they're connected. I'm still learning every day.
I think, yeah, I really resonate with the last thing that Aline said about sort of not knowing how everything is sort of connecting to my faith right now. And if I'm being totally honest, I think this year has been a bit of a, I don't know, faith has been kind of trickier this year than it has been for me in the past, like back the past couple of years at school. And I don't know if that's just like because of living in the pandemic, or just like, I don't know, you go and you have seasons of consolation and desolation in your faith life. But I think I've been reading a little bit recently about, not to talk about Greg Boyle again, but I just finished Greg Boyle's second book a little while ago. And then now I'm reading another book that Emily's roommate, actually another JV, former Jesuit volunteer, to me about sort of faith and service. And I think that is really helpful, because I've always believed that like God is like found in relationships between people. That's like the easiest way for me to be like, okay, like that's how I'm experiencing my faith. And so I think reading those things is like a really important reminder for me to just like sort of pay attention and like notice where I am, and sort of recognize that I've seen God in the interactions with the folks that work at the clinic or work patients at the clinic. But I think in particular, I've felt sort of, I don't know, like the presence of God in my relationships with the clinic staff. I've just felt in like a time that I think is tough for everybody, just like so much joy. And I think Emily used the word silly, like being silly with people, and like having fun little, I don't know, like stupid inside jokes or whatever. And so I think, yeah, faith has been kind of tough for me, and I don't know where I'm feeling right now. I think it's been a tough year for everybody, but maybe, yeah, in the like silliness of relationship with coworkers, that's where I felt my faith most recently.
Sure, no, I'm glad that you all mentioned that. But so since we are in a pandemic, and I cannot say that enough because it's been quite a year for everyone. But what do you believe is the biggest invisible impact this pandemic is having on people, and or will continue to have on people?
I can jump in here. Maybe that's such a great question, and so much is yet to be seen, obviously. I'm also going to borrow the wisdom of Father Greg Boyle. We're channeling, we understand that he was your previous speaker, so we're just channeling his genius, even though it sounds like you've heard it all already. But I had watched an incredible interview with him put on by the Ignatian Solidarity Network at the very beginning of the pandemic, like spring of last year. And he was asked a similar question, and his answer was vicinity is the solution, could be the solution to so many of the world's problems. And that's exactly what we don't have right now. And that has really struck me, especially as, it's made me think of my transition out of JVC, which was extremely difficult in terms of the loss of my immediate fellow Jesuit volunteers that I was living with, but also losing that integral connection point of living in that house and in that neighborhood and having my placement. So I felt very connected in a daily, visceral way during my JVC year. And then I moved to the other side of town, and I had a new position and was trying to make a new community. And then I think it was something like 7 months later, the pandemic hit, and it's impossible to be in vicinity now, or there's a slow thaw, and we're finally cautiously able to go out again, and more so every day. But I don't know. I think that we've been prevented from bearing witness to human experience in a way that isn't the people in our pod. That makes service difficult. It makes volunteering difficult. It makes meeting new people difficult. And it's hard enough to have the courage to bear witness to other people's experience in an extremely, again, visceral way. So I think it's going to be hard to bounce back from that. But then on the flip side, I hope that the desire is there and comes back full force as a best case scenario. And I know I myself am yearning connection through service again.
Yeah, I'm resonating with a lot of what Hannah said. And I'm especially seeing that in my students. It's like we moved to hybrid February 1st. So we've only been back with students in the building for about a month. And like my first graders don't know how to talk to each other. Like truly they don't know how to like engage with each other because they haven't been around peers for almost a year. And like on Zoom, sure, but when you're 6 and on a computer, like that's not any sort of like real connection or like impact on you. And I think that like it might feel visible in some ways. Like we know their academics are really far behind. We know that we're budgeting like 5 years for them to get back to where they should be academically. Like that feels very visible. Like we're very much there with that. But the social pieces, like I don't know, one of our cohorts, like our our Tuesday, Thursday cohort, like lunches are silent. And all I want is for them to like just connect and like talk to each other and just like be able to like be silly and goofy. But like they're going through a lot. They're going through a lot of like familial trauma right now, honestly. And like a lot of them live in multi-generational households and a lot of them still have family in Mexico and like they're losing family members every week. And they're just like, they're so serious. And I just, yeah, it breaks my heart, but I just want them to be like free, and that's like not a reality for them. So yeah, I think that's going to be a really long lasting impact, especially for kids who are living in sort of like COVID vulnerable populations. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything super original to add. I'll just say like, I think the hardest thing is just like not being able to connect with other people. Like Zoom is like an awesome thing to have, but like it also kind of sucks sometimes because like I don't know, people crave to like be near each other and like connect in person. And I think even in terms of like our JV year, apart from the work placement, there's usually like multiple retreats that happen or JV community will go travel to communities in other cities and like visit people. And we've heard stories from Hannah and Emily and some other former Jesuit volunteers about how they got to do that, and it sounds really cool and fun. And it's tough that we're not able to do it for good reason. Obviously, we shouldn't be doing that, but yeah, I don't know. Connection is tough, I think.
Yeah, and just kind of to build off of that. So Elaine talks about, interconnectedness of the world, and I think we're realizing, not only how we are interconnected because we're able to spread this virus, but also because our desire for connection. What I hope, though, that becomes a long-lasting takeaway is that the invisible impact that we have of our understanding that we need to take care of each other as a community. We need to, look out for one another because we are interconnected. And yeah, so that's my little bit of a positive spin. But I think we've seen, a lot of generosity and a lot of, togetherness despite physical separation.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there always is hope. So I'm kind of glad that you like ended it with like a really nice like note, which is much needed now. But like, what would your biggest takeaway be from JVC on a positive note, hopefully?
How to fall in love with strangers.
Can we just do like a mic drop?
You guys are so supportive.
We love you too.
Wait, I'm sorry. I totally forgot. What was the question?
What would the biggest takeaway be with JVC?
Well, I guess the JVC slogan, which has now changed, but I love the old one. I guess it was politically incorrect and whatnot, but it used to be ruined for life. And I love that. I think it's very true. I think not only because I'm lucky enough to continue to know these lovely people and to be involved in the JVC community by way of friendship, but I think about it every single day. I think it has really truly changed my orientation towards life and my desire to experience things fully and to be in community and really to redefine community. So I think throughout the pandemic, when community has been really hard, it's also, having had that kind of rich experience of community, both in an immediate household, in the form of friendship, and in the form of work placements and neighborhood, has really taught me that it's out there and that it can be achieved again. And I'm so grateful for that, and grateful to be getting it back slowly but surely.
You got it.
I think, yeah, I'm not super sure what my big takeaway is, but so if you will allow me, I might sort of answer the question a tiny bit differently. And like one thing that has happened from JVC that I wasn't really expecting, but I think is something that I'll carry with me afterwards, we'll see, is at least and this is apart from placement, but in Milwaukee specifically, the amount of support from the broader JVC community has been absolutely incredible, and I can't emphasize that enough. We have each JVC community has a local formation team, which is 2 people and then a Jesuit companion or liaison, or I forget what they call them, a Jesuit buddy.
Our Jesuit guys.
And so ours is Father David Shields, who lives on Marquette's campus, and this couple, Nicole and Peter, and they have these 2 boys who are 4 and 6 now. But they have been, no, their birthdays just happened.
Yeah, they turned 5 and 3. It's not important.
Oh, frick. But yeah, so that support has been beautiful and has made me and I'm assuming the rest of the JVs here feel so loved and supported, and they've sort of created a bigger community where we're now good friends with Hannah and Emily and other FJVs and other JVC associated people in the city. So that's been beautiful, and something that I think those relationships, in addition to work related stuff, is things that I'm gonna take with me.
Yeah, I think so too. I kind of agree with Luke on this. Again, our year is only half over, so I don't know that I have a big takeaway yet, because we're here through the end of July. But I mean, I'm sure I'll have a million little takeaways and hopefully at least a couple big ones. But yeah, just to echo Emily and Hannah and Luke on all of this. But I think just there's a million pieces to this that are amazing. And I don't know, I got to meet Luke, which I don't know would have happened otherwise. And we are living together, which is awesome and weird. You just move in with strangers and hope that things work out, which is super fun. And yeah, getting to know Emily and Hannah and Nicole and Peter and Father David. I don't know. It's been amazing. And I feel I get to absorb so much just intelligence and love and I don't know, just I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but care, I guess, in everything that they all do every day. And that's been super, super informative to how I go about my day. And I'm really lucky to have them.
It sounds very rewarding, for sure, being in JVC. But now I'm going to open the floor to any questions that people may have. Does anybody have any questions?
So how would you say your experience in JVC has affected you personally? Have you taken up any traits or anything that has just changed you as a person?
Could the MC, Rob, could you repeat the question? It was kind of far away. I don't know if I'm the only one, or
yeah. So I could kind of relay it to you. She asked, how has being a JV personally, how have you changed as a person? As an individual.
That feels like such a big question. I hope that I've changed for the better so far, but who knows? But I feel like one thing, like, I just like always, never like assuming that you know somebody's story. And I feel like that's like something I always like tried to do or like thought about before doing JVC, but like being here and learning about like where my kids come from, my students, not like, yeah, like are coming from and their backgrounds. And then also like we volunteer at the food pantry that's right next door on Wednesdays, and hearing from like all of those people who are clients at the food pantry about like just like things that are going on, like I don't know, yeah, just like I'm working extra hard to just never assume that I know where someone's coming from. And I think that that's definitely one way that I've like changed in my intentionality behind that so far this year.
I think one thing for me is I think I've become more patient and like more able to just sort of sit with things and soak things up. I think partly because a lot of our patients, not a lot, some of our patients are older and are like Spanish speakers, not from the US. And sometimes if, I don't know, I'm talking to them about like a medication or something that they need to like reorder or whatever, they'll like talk for like a long time about like something different, or like, I don't know, just like it gets off topic and I'm like, okay, I have like people I gotta call, like faxes I gotta send out. Earlier on in the year, I was more like, all right, let's go, come on. But I think now I've begun to appreciate a lot more, like if there's a patient that, I don't know, particularly like the older patients, I think are a lot more, and maybe because of the pandemic too, but are just very excited to get to like chat with people and like talk. And I think I've begun to recognize like the importance of just sort of being more patient and taking the time to just like sit with someone and, or not sit, like stand with someone and I don't know, listen to what they have to say.
I wanted to add to something Elaine had touched base on earlier, which is just how truly bizarre JVC community is. Yeah, it's just like JVC is a matching process in terms of placements. Then you arrive at JVC orientation and you're told these are the, in my case, it was here are the 4 strangers you're going to be living with for a year. And the structure of JVC is also formalized. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's an intentional community. That's the word I was looking for. So you eat together, typically 5+ nights a week. You cook for each other. You have a weekly community night, a weekly spirituality night. And so these are not your roommates. We said like these are my community mates, and they will always have a different ring and a different kind of connotation and sense of responsibility and joy to it. And that is a challenge. I'd heard some, other former Jesuit volunteers say it's the closest thing that that approximated marriage, and coming right out of your undergraduate and just being told that these are people that you will love and you will have intense experiences with, but you're moving into a house together and you're looking at each other like, is this a reality TV show? This is so strange. And I think that it's really powerful to grow to love people that you maybe would not have ever befriended had you been in the same class or attended the same undergraduate university. And maybe, you won't have as strong of communication chains and friendship with them after the year ends, but you did love those people. And so I think that's taught me so much about myself and being open-minded to the people that are in my life. And something Elaine also said earlier, that sometimes you realize I'm placed in this person's path for a reason. So obviously I'm the one who's here to listen to them and do it for them, at this point in time. So that mutuality that comes of the JVC living circumstance was really transformative for me.
Yeah, thank you guys for your thoughtful answers to this thoughtful question. I have absolutely changed as a person as a result of my year. I think it's hard not to change as a person. Just like at Boston College, I was involved in service, but again, it was like I was a full-time student, as I'm sure most of you are, and so to really be able to commit an entire year of full-time service Not only that, but then like Canna was mentioning, the community aspect to it too. So you're fully immersed in your local community, your you know, individual household with other people from around the United States. Another value of the program is simple living. And I think that's also something that I've tried to take with me after my year ended. So not only the values I learned at my placement of like cultural humility and other things, but also just simple living. The way I look at like my environmental footprint is totally different as a result of JVC, and I think that has a lot to do with my community mates pushing, us pushing each other to really think about, okay, how can we live simply? But then one last thing I'll say is the other part of living simply is really investing in relationships and investing in people, and I think that's something that will last. That I'll take with me. Sorry, I can't speak. I'll take with me moving forward.
Awesome. That is all we have time for. So, unfortunately, if everyone could give our wonderful panel of people of JVs and former JVs a round of applause. And yeah, it's been a pleasure having you guys. Your service has been awesome, and yeah, have a great night, guys.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Nice to meet all of you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being in Milwaukee.
Thanks for having us.
This was great. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye.